Republican state representatives warn of higher taxes, while the congressional delegation from Illinois sounding off on Epstein files, immigration enforcement and DHS, and voter ID. That's what we're going to be focusing on here with Illinois in Focus. For the Center Square, I'm Greg Bishop, your host, and also your host for the Center Square Daily, which you can catch here at the Center Square later on weekdays. Again, subscribe, like, share, hit the notification bell, all of those things so you can stay up to date right here with Illinois in Focus and the Center Square. All right, go to the website, thecentersquare.com, where you can sign up for the newsletter to get the latest headlines in your inbox each and every weekday morning. You'll see everything ranging from what's going on in Chicago to the State House. We're going to have some activity next week with Governor J.B. Pritzker set to deliver his State of the State and budget address. We'll find out how taxpayers' money is going to be spent in the coming year, at least according to the governor. So that's going to be a busy week next week. So be sure to stay with us as we watch and report out as to how your tax dollars are going to be used. So again, get to the website, thecentersquare.com, wake up with us here, and give me that thumbs up as well in the live chat. If I'm coming through clear, the lip sync is on and everything, so give me that thumbs up, all right? Next up, Republicans critical of proposed tax and fee increases that Democrats are promoting at the State House. We'll talk about that here with Illinois in Focus Daily. It is thecentersquare.com. A couple of State House Republicans yesterday holding a news conference, raising warnings about proposed tax increases in the land of Lincoln as the legislative session's getting ready to kick into full gear next week, with the legislature set to hear what Governor J.B. Pritzker wants to do with the state budget. It is Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm your host, Greg Bishop. Thanks for being with us each and every weekday morning. And next week's going to be a big week. The governor's going to be delivering his budget address on Wednesday in front of a joint session of the General Assembly. We'll get a lot of detail about whether or not he's looking to increase spending from current thresholds, whether there's going to be taxpayer savings on any programs, and is he going to call for a surcharge on millionaires? And that would require a constitutional amendment. If you recall, the governor supported the so-called progressive income tax change that voters rejected in 2020. But in 2026 now, you could possibly see another question raised for voters to say, hey, let's change the state's flat income tax to allow for a millionaire surcharge. So that's another tax increase that could possibly be coming. Wouldn't just impact those who are independently wealthy, could possibly impact those who are, pass-throughs for businesses. Small business mechanics say, you got $2 million business. Well, it's more than $1 million, so you're going to have to pay extra taxes on that. So you can see how it might impact different aspects of the economy. But then you drill down even further to some of the other proposals that are out there. And you've got a proposal on taxing bags at the grocery store, for instance. You've got a proposal on taxing campfires at the State House. A couple of Republicans holding a news conference yesterday virtually, and State Representative Dave Severin says the idea of a campfire tax is something that is distasteful.
How out of touch can a politician be to even think of such an idea, let alone put it in a bill form and present it as a serious idea?
So the idea comes from State Representative Amy Briel. It's essentially, she says that there's misinformation out there about the bill. We talked about this last week with the idea of, if you want to have a open fire in an unincorporated area, the law that she's proposing would not require, but allow for local governments to require a $5 fee to get a permit for a campfire or an open brush fire or something like that. Briel says that this is misinformation and that her intent is to give local fire departments who are already strapped, especially rural volunteer fire departments, the ability to know where stuff's burning at. So she says that it's not intended to be an extra burden on people who just want to have a campfire. But she says she's going to be amending that bill. So Republicans obviously critical of that. But Severin, State Representative Dave Severin, he also criticized the idea of a bag tax.
No matter if it's a paper bag, plastic bag, reusable bag, they're going to get me for starting in 2027, 10 cents a bag. Then in 2028, it goes up to 15 cents, 20 cents in 2029, and a quarter in 2030. And it's not a one-time fee or tax. It's a permanent escalating tax on necessities. And it hits families every time they shop. Between taxing your backyard campfires and the bags you would use to bring home those things for that fire, the Democrats want to get in your pocket every day. So we simply can't afford these dangerous and unworkable proposals to move forward. The taxpayers have had enough, and so have we.
So will taxpayers hear more about this in the coming months? Again, legislative session ends May 31st. If you look at the trajectory, it seems that year after year after year, we've had tax and fee increases of different kinds. Last year, we had the tax increase on sports wagering. We had every year, July 1st, tax increase on gas tax. You've got businesses having to pay more for certain issues when it comes to their tax filings. And all of these things, year after year after year after year, you're seeing those tax increases being proposed, debated, and then passed, including during fall veto session. If you recall, at first it was going to be, a tax on retail delivery. Then they dropped that and said, we'll just allow for Cook County to increase, sales taxes, or around CTA and the Regional Transit Authority. They can increase sales taxes regionally and also some toll fee increases. So you can see just the progression of how these things happen. Get a little bit of a flash of a bunch of tax increases. Those are modified until last minute. They ultimately pass something. So the concerns are there. But State Representative Kyle Moore, Republican, yesterday holding a news conference, he said that the priorities of the Democrats are, they go too far.
We have seen the state of Illinois, the sanctuary state of Illinois, that is, prioritize tax dollars to pay for health care, lodging, food, daycare for people who are in this country illegally. The prioritization of non-citizens' expenditures has cost our taxpayers nearly $3 billion in the last 3 years alone. Add that to the fact that Democrats have raised taxes and fees and used one-time funding gimmicks to pass record spending budgets in the middle of the night on the last day of session, and you have a recipe for continued unaffordability of living in this state.
We'll be watching closely so you can keep getting to work. We'll inform you of how the State House is going to look at spending your dollars or increasing how much they take from you. And that's what we do at the Center Square, is we watch things so that we can inform you, the taxpayer, on how you're being impacted by your government. All right, it is Illinois in Focus Daily right here with the Center Square. Illinois' congressional delegation having a busy week over in Congress, dealing with things like oversight of the Department of Homeland Security, voter ID, and yes, even the Epstein files. This is Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop, your host. Be sure to catch us here for the Center Square Daily later on in the day, only with the Center Square. It's a national look at a lot of the incredible reporting that the team from the Center Square works on every day. So very excited to bring that new program to you here for the center square. So let's get into it. Congress has been busy. Last night, they passed the voter ID law out of the House. Now, this is they've passed it before out of the House. This is a different one, does pretty much the same thing, voter ID and show ID when you go vote. And now it's up to the Senate. What's going to happen in the U.S. Senate? Is this going to change the trajectory of the 2026 election? Obviously, it was a big thing last night. Last night also, Democrats were able to get a resolution passed to essentially try to block Trump's tariffs on Canada. So that did happen yesterday as well in Congress. But when you're looking at a major priority for Republicans, it's voter ID. And they say that it's actually something that's very popular across the political spectrum. But we'll get to that here in a moment. Yesterday, Attorney General Pam Bondi was testifying in front of a House committee, and it got pretty loud and a lot of clickable and watchable events out of that. But when it comes to congressional delegations from various states, let's take a look at Illinois. Chuy Garcia, he addressed Pam Bondi, didn't really ask her any questions. He just had a 5-minute, speech of sorts to lay out his concerns about, the Epstein files and, Republicans, he says, are covering it up. And then he goes on to talk about the brutality of domestic immigration enforcement and so on. But you have Bondi ultimately responding to Garcia's criticism of her handling of the Department of Justice.
But you can spare yourself more humiliation. Resign now and submit yourself to accountability by the American people.
He's not running for office again because, well, I don't know why you're not running for office again, but after the filing deadline, you publicly announced you would not run when your chief of staff, Patty Garcia, announced and took your seat.
That's a state matter. That isn't a federal matter. You should investigate crimes. You should investigate violations of the law.
Interesting, she pulls that out of a cue card to highlight how Chuy Garcia is not running for Congress again. Instead, his chief of staff is looking to take his seat. And the way he came about saying he wasn't going to run again was after the filing deadline. After he filed, he announced he was stepping down. And the mechanisms in Illinois, and this has been criticized, highlighting some impropriety there, some alleged impropriety as to how that played out. But Garcia saying that that's a state issue and it's not a federal one, but he didn't really push back on the legitimacy of Bondi's claims there that have been vetted here in Illinois as well. And it's a big question. And I think that's one of the biggest problems with Illinois' primary system is indicated in the questions surrounding how Chuy Garcia is handing over his seat to his chief of staff to be on the ballot. So that issue, obviously, the Epstein files is the more you peel that onion, the just crazier it gets. And something that is going to continue to make headlines, and rightfully so. But when it comes to the transparency of it all, I mean, 3+ million documents that have been released in the past month and a half. That is a level of transparency that the victims called for, though there's a lot of criticism of how the files were released and how they didn't redact certain victim information. Regardless, a lot's going to be said about the Epstein files. Meanwhile, the ongoing conversation about DHS funding in Washington. If you aren't plugged into that, again, I would encourage you to watch the Center Square Daily, where we look at national stories and also stories from across the country and state houses all around. But a big story out of Washington, D.C. is the looming fiscal lapse for DHS, the Department of Homeland Security, and that includes Coast Guard, Secret Service, TSA, disaster funding relief. Those types of things could be held up come Friday, tomorrow, if Congress doesn't approve a spending bill for DHS. Democrats trying to hold that up, saying, hey, they want reforms to ICE and immigration enforcement. But Illinois Congresswoman Delia Ramirez, she says DHS needs to be dismantled altogether.
I'm going to say it loud and clear, and I'm proud to stand by what I say. DHS cannot be reformed. It must be dismantled, and something new must take its place. Because if we let DHS persist, It will continue to be a weapon that can be pointed at anyone the government considers the public enemy. And let me tell you, fascism always requires a public enemy. But the power of the people is stronger than the weapons they would wield against us.
So she's for dismantling DHS, and she's bombastic in her approach, talking about fascism and the harm she says is being done to immigrant communities. Republicans firing back, saying that the illegal aliens in the country who are violent,
I hear my colleague
have brought chaos to the streets. And Republicans saying that there wouldn't be a large force of ICE officials on the streets if it wasn't for the blocking of cooperation in sanctuary states and jurisdictions like Illinois, like Chicago, like Minnesota and Minneapolis. So that debate's going to continue, and it looks like we're going to careen towards a partial government shutdown of DHS when it comes to disaster relief, when it comes to the TSA, when it comes to the Secret Service. Now, essential employees will still have to work, but they'll probably have to work without getting paid. When you have Democrats like Delia Ramirez saying that they want to dismantle DHS, and that's their goal, you can see where this is heading. Next up, you've got Ramirez yesterday talking about the voter ID law that ultimately passed last night in the U.S. House. And here she is saying that voter ID is racist.
I hear my colleagues on the other side of the aisle. What I hear is the same racist, misogynistic trash, different decade. Republicans are invoking historical policies intended, let's be clear, to disenfranchise Americans, especially working people, women, students, indigenous people, and anyone who can't afford the burdens of a new bill. The Save America Act is yet another Republican attempt to intimidate and suppress the votes of anyone who threatens their extremist white supremacist agenda.
Is it a white supremacist agenda? Some saying that that's just over the top ridiculous. When you look at some recent polling by organizations like ABC, voter ID is very popular across the political spectrum, across racial demographics. State of Illinois U.S. Representative Mary Miller making that point earlier in the week when they were talking about this in a U.S. House committee.
Election integrity should be a nonpartisan issue, but sadly, House Democrats have made it clear they have no interest in restoring confidence and ensuring security in our elections. As ABC noted this past weekend, 83% of adults support requiring a photo ID to vote, as do 73% of Democrat voters. And yet, Democrat elected officials oppose voter ID at every turn, and 14 blue-leaning states, including Illinois, have refused to implement this common sense measure.
Well, will it be implemented? If the federal law says that you have to have voter ID in order to register to vote and be a citizen, and also show a citizen's ID when you go to the polls, that would impact federal elections. So if this bill passes the U.S. Senate and the president signs it, they could bifurcate Illinois' ballot, where you've got, all right, you have to show a federal approved ID to grab your ballot for the federal election. That's members of Congress, president, and Senate, versus the state stuff, governor, state rep, state senator. Will that confuse things, or will Illinois just fall in line and say, okay, voter ID for everything? It'd be interesting to see what happens here the next handful of days, and however long it takes to impact DHS funding and voter ID laws and so on. But we'll keep you updated here with the Center Square. All right, it is Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more. All right, that's all I got for you on this Thursday. We'll be back at it Friday to wrap things up. But don't forget to be here for the Center Square Daily. It's our new program for the Center Square, where I host reporters from all across the country delving into how you, the taxpayer, are being impacted by state houses across the country. So check it out. It is the Center Square Daily. Greatly appreciate you guys being here for the Center Square.
Thanks, Brett.